Hello dear students and welcome back to our discussion on modern Indian history. Thus far in this series, we have covered up to the topics of Revolt of 1857. Now this topic marks a sort of a threshold in our syllabus. After this, we are entering a completely different leg, so to speak, of our modern Indian history. And hence it is convenient at this point to actually review the previous year's questions asked on topics thus far. This will help us to get an idea of the type of questions that are asked, number one. And number two, it will also help us to quickly revise the content related to that question also. So without further ado, let's get started and see the questions asked in prelims in the recent years. The first question here. By which of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as Governor General of India? When is this happening? That is the question. Regulating Act, Pitt's India Act, that is 1784, Charter Act 1793, or is it Charter Act of 1833? Now, as you all would probably be able to recall, this happens in Charter Act of 1833. After the Anglo-Maratha War in 1817, the Third Maratha War, all the Maratha chiefs are humbled, Peshwaship is abolished, the Peshwa is pensioned off, all the Maratha Sardars have to accept subsidiary alliance, and consequently large swaths of north and central India will come under the Britishers. The Rajputs will also enter into treaties with the British. Consequently, now British rule could legitimately claim that they were holding on to almost the whole of India. Barring Punjab and Sindh, largely the entire subcontinent was either directly or indirectly under the British rule. So now it made sense for the Britishers to designate their top official as Governor General of India instead of just Governor General of Bengal. This is the broader context, guys, in which this change takes place. Now, in the chat box, you are going to tell me who was the first Governor General of India. Okay, when the Charter Act 1833 comes in, who will become the first Governor General of India? Along with that, you will also tell me who was the first Governor General of Bengal when the Regulating Act comes in 1773. The financial crisis of East India Company in 1772 had compelled the Britishers to pass this act. And this act started the trend of centralization. The trend of centralization, where power was concentrated towards Calcutta. Why was that being done? Reason was very obvious. Bengal, the governor of Bengal was now controlling a massive territory. Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Bombay and Madras relatively were very small. And therefore it made logical sense for the British government to empower the in-charge authority of Bengal over the other governors. So Governor of Bengal will be made as Governor General of Bengal. And that starts a process of centralization which will continue right up to Revolt of 1857. That centralization will be replaced by decentralization later. But in Regulating Act of 1773, right up to Government of India Act of 1858, we will see trend of centralization. All right. So this is the first question, guys. Now you are to tell me two things. Who was the first Governor General of India and who was the first Governor General of Bengal? Let's see how many of you remember. Next question. With reference to Indian history, Alexander Rhea, A.H. Longhart, Robert Sewell, James Burgess, Walter Elliot, they were all associated with which of the followings? This is a slightly difficult question. Archaeological excavations, establishment of English press in colonial India, churches in princely state, and railways in colonial India. Which of these? Now here the answer is archaeological excavations. Now such questions, either you know it or you don't know it. So in such questions, unless and until you have some strong clue, you really cannot go ahead with marking the answer over here. Either you know it or you don't know it. One should avoid taking unnecessary risk in these type of questions. All right. Fine. Let's take the next question then after this. With reference to Indian history, consider the following statements. The Dutch established their factories or warehouses on the east coast on lands granted by the Gajapati rulers. Gajapati rulers. Alfonso de Albuquerque captured Goa from Bijapur Sultanate. Alfonso de Albuquerque. The English East India Company established factory at Madras on a plot of land leased by a representative of the Vijayanagar Empire. So 3 statements have been given to you, right? Now, out of these, whenever such statements are given and then there are multiple combinations like this, you must start with the statement about which you are the most sure. Alfonso de Albuquerque captured Goa from Bijapur Sultanate is something that is very well known. It's there in your NCRTs. So one is expected to know about this. So we can say for sure that 2 is correct. And if 2 is correct, then straight away, one of the option has been eliminated. So at least now we have a better chance of reaching the better probability of reaching the right answer. So remember this. Start with what you are most sure about and then try to see if that helps you with the options. The next statement, English East India Company established a factory at Madras with the help of plot leased by representative of Vijayanagar Empire. Now the Vijayanagar Empire had suffered a decline in the previous century itself, but then when East India Company is going to establish a factory, there will be successor small states arising out of it, and East India Company will be able to secure a lease through that same source. So in that sense, statement number 3 is correct. So if statement number 3 is correct, we can surely say that answer option A is eliminated. So we have one more answer option eliminated. Okay. This leaves us now with 2 options. So now probability of getting the answer right is 50%. Either of these 2 is the answer. So when you mark something out of these 2, 50% chances are that you will get it right. The first statement, Dutch established their factories, warehouses on the east coast on lands granted to them by the Gajapati rulers. Now, if you see the timeline or the history of medieval period, the Gajapatis were important rulers in the coastal areas of Orissa and Andhra Pradesh. But then they were ruling in the previous century again. When the Dutch come to India and start to establish their factories, by that time the Gajapati rulers are not holding sway in this area. Therefore, statement number 1 is wrong. And if 1 is wrong, then our answer turns out to be 2 and 3. So this is how, guys, you can try to apply what you know and arrive at answers. All right. So let's take the next question. But before that, a very quick and very important announcement for all of you. We have come out with our new offering considering the different requirements that aspirants have who are at different stages of their preparation. Some aspirants would be aiming for 2024 as their attempt, while others would be gunning for 2025 or 2026. Every aspirant is different, and therefore we can't have just a one-size-fits-all approach. For that reason, we have this P2I batch starting from the 10th of October, an evening batch, which will be based on different terms of validity. These batches can be enrolled by aspirants depending on what is their targeted year of attempt. If you enroll for the silver validity, then you will be able to access this batch for 1.5 years. Yes, it says 1 year, but considering the needs and requirements of the students, we have enhanced actually the validity of this batch. So this batch will be accessible for 1.5 years. The validity will be 1.5 years. The batch starts from 10th of October. The lectures will go on, but the students will be able to view the recorded sessions also up to 1.5 years. Gold validity will give you this access for 2.5 years, 6 months extra. And the platinum validity will give that to you for 3.5 years. So for those students who are maybe still pursuing college or are working right now and 2024 isn't exactly their targets, this is their golden opportunity. Instead of waiting for the attempt to come and loom larger over the horizon, it is better that you become that early bird which catches the prey. Starting out early, starting out, well within time helps you to pace your preparation in an appropriate manner. These batches will of course have all the features that our P2I batches have. Prelims to interview batch, it is an end-to-end solution or product for all your civil services preparation need. Considering and understanding all the requirements that an aspirant faces when he prepares for civil services examination, these batches have been designed to meet those needs. For example, you of course require coaching. These batches will include several hundred hours of live online classroom coaching, where you will interact with senior and experienced faculties of different subjects, where entire syllabus will be covered with you in a time-bound manner. While you are discussing and understanding things in the classroom, you may still come across some difficulties when you prepare by yourself alone. You will require some customized plans based on your specific needs. For that reason, these batches have mentorship also. Your mentors will help you to design a customized plan according to your own needs. These mentors will be accessible to you so that any doubts, any queries, whether it be about the batch or about the content of the syllabus, anything that you require, you can directly reach out to these mentors and get your doubts redressed. On a daily basis, current affairs lectures will be made available to you so that without wasting a lot of time in doing all of that spade work yourself, you can get entire current affairs related content condensed in a video lecture supported with a PDF file. And on a daily basis, dear students, you get daily mains answer writing practice, weekly prelims types test or objective type test on a weekly basis, prelims related detailed and lengthy test series, so that you are not only good with your content but are also developing skills for the examination. We have a special mains residential program. If you're able to crack the prelims, then immediately you will be called to Delhi, where you will be preparing at a residential facility of StudyIQ IAS. All expenses borne by StudyIQ IAS. You don't have to pay anything extra, not a single dime extra for that. We will take all care and responsibility that you are able to crack the mains that year. Entire syllabus crash course will be made available to you. With your peers, you will be preparing for mains examination in that same residential facility with teachers and mentors readily accessible to all of you. All this and a lot more is included in the P2I offering of StudyIQ IAS. And all of this comes at a throwaway price, guys. At 23,999, you can get the 1.5 year silver subscription of this batch starting from 10th of August. You can't ask for more than this, guys. This is the ultimate. Trust me, this is the ultimate. There can't be a better solution to your civil services preparation needs. So in case you are still in a double mind, I would strongly recommend that you use my code JD Live and enroll for this particular batch. Silver, gold or platinum, you can take a call what sort of a validity you will require for your preparation needs. Batches are starting very soon, guys, 10th of October. I would recommend that you take the decision immediately and enroll for these batches. Also join me on my Telegram channel, where you will get updates about my videos and also PDF notes of the lectures that I engage here on YouTube and a lot of other stuff also. Use this QR code to scan and reach my Telegram channel, Jawwad Kazi UPSC Preparation. Now let us see the next question. In the first quarter of 17th century, in which of the following were the factory or factories of East India Company located? Bharuch, Chikakol, Trichinopalli. It's saying first quarter of 17th century. The Britishers have just arrived. So these are very initial times. So which all places these factories were is what the question is asking. UPSC has sometimes asked questions based on factories, as we saw in case of the Dutch, now in case of the English. It is not as if you need to cram up every single factory when it is coming up, but having a sense of how a particular company is expanding its presence in India, that will be sufficient to answer such questions. The question is about first quarter of the 17th century. The Britishers have just arrived. 1609, the first time they come to the court of Jahangir. So naturally, these are very initial times. Yes, the permission was given at Surat, and then Baroch will come up. But Chikakol, what we call in our contemporary times as Srikakulam, and Trichinopalli, these were not there in the first quarter of the 17th century. You remember Masulipatnam and then later Fort St. George, that is Madras. They will come up in South India. Yes, but then not beyond that. And that too, Madras will come up after the first quarter. So even if you have that sense when Madras is coming up, you will very easily be able to understand that in South India, the presence was not there and in these places. I hope you got this, guys. So this is how you can use or apply what you know to reach the answer. Next question. Wellesley established the Fort William College at Calcutta because why did he establish this college at Fort William? A, he was asked by the board of directors. B, he wanted to revive interest in Oriental learning. He wanted to provide William Carey and his associates with employment. He wanted to train British civilians for administrative purpose in India. This is a fact very well associated with Wellesley. Any aspirant who has done proper preparation will know that Lord Richard Wellesley had established this particular college for this purpose. That is, for training civil servants here in India. What used to happen was these civil servants, they were coming at a very young or ripe age of 18 odd years without any experience of life or without any experience of India and Indians. So Wellesley felt that they need to be given some sort of firm grounding about India, especially Indian languages. And for that reason, he had started this college. Okay, this is something that you must know very well. We have discussed this in our series in the previous lecture. If you've not watched the episodes of this series, I'll urge you to click on the playlist in the description box and watch the earlier lectures of this series. Fort William College. The company's directors did not in fact like this idea, and later they will transfer this training facility to Haileybury College in England. There the civil servants will be trained, not here in India. Nevertheless, the start was made by Wellesley. With reference to history of India, Ulgulan or the Great Tumult is the description of which of the following events? Ulgulan or the Great Tumult is connected with which of the following? Revolt of 1857, Mapilla Rebellion in 1921, Indigo Revolt of 1859, or Birsa Munda's Revolt of 1899-1900. UPSC has asked question related to Santhal Hool also, that we have seen in our class, Santhal Hool, and also the Munda Revolt in this form. The answer, of course, is Munda Revolt. This is a topic, tribal revolts, that we have discussed very recently, and in great detail. We have seen all the major case studies of tribal revolts in India. The Munda Revolt was a very significant revolt. They revolt against the changed socio-economic order, the interference that the Britishers were doing in the tribal life. These people were used to a certain way of life. They had practices like the Khund Katti system, where there was collective ownership of land. Britishers brought about absolute ownership of land. Individual could own the land, buy and sell it easily. British land revenue policies introduced many foreigners, which used to be called as dekus by tribals. These money lenders, jagirdars, zamindars, then your thekedars, all of these people are oppressive of the tribals. And consequently, we'll see that in India, there will be many different revolts of the tribals. The Munda revolt is a very famous one in that, under Birsa Munda's leadership. Birsa Munda will try to purge the tribal society, his tribe, particularly Munda tribe, of all the vices that it had, intoxication, superstition, so on and so forth, and he will rise up against the Britishers. Birsa Munda will be captured, and later the Britishers, although they suppressed this revolt violently, but they did pass a Tenancy Act which reformed or tried to address the grievances of the tribals. They also ensured that forceful transfer of land was not taking place and the interests of the tribals were protected. So this is the question on Munda Ulgulan. Next question. Which of the following statements correctly explains impact of industrial revolution in India during the 19th century? Indian handicrafts were ruined. Machines were introduced in the Indian textile industries in large numbers. Railway lines were laid in many parts of India. Heavy duties were imposed on the imports of British manufacturers. Imports of British manufacturers. Now, this question is a very easy one. See, machines were introduced in Indian textile. The first, textile mill that starts is in Rishra in 1853. So there is no question of machines being introduced earlier. Railway lines were laid out. First railway line itself starts in 1853, Bombay to Thane, right? So there is no question of railway lines earlier than that. So these two are definitely out of question for us. Heavy duties on the imports of British. Exactly opposite was happening. Indian products, when they were exported, there was heavy duty in Britain on those Indian products. Whereas British products imported over here, those products were subjected to minimal import duties. Therefore, this statement is also wrong. All that we are left is Indian handicrafts were ruined, and we know this was a definite impact of British rule in India. Traditional Indian industry, the handicraft industry, the famed karigari of Indian artisan, which had been of great value for several centuries, was now very systematically suppressed. That is what will happen. Handicrafts will be ruined. Answer is answer option A. I hope you got this, guys. Next question. Indigo cultivation in India declined by the beginning of 20th century because of. Why did indigo cultivation decline? Peasant resistance. Second, unprofitability in the world market because of new inventions. National leaders' opposition to the cultivation of this crop, and government control over the planters. This is straight away from Bipin Chandra, India's struggle for independence. Other sources also have it. The answer of this is unprofitability. Indigo was a natural dye. Natural dye. But then later chemical dyes were developed. As advancement in chemistry took place, we will see chemical dyes will develop, and because of that, indigo as a natural dye will not be as profitable, and therefore the planters will slowly start to close their plantations and their factories of indigo. Next question. Which one of the following groups of plants was domesticated in the New World? Domesticated in the New World and introduced to the Old World. Domesticated, new, and introduced to the Old World. Now, what is New World? The term perhaps may not be familiar to you. Amerigo Vespucci, when he went to America, he realized, unlike Columbus who had actually gone earlier, Amerigo Vespucci realized that he has discovered a completely new land. And when he went back to Europe, he in fact wrote a book called as The New World. And this became the epithet, the sobriquet or title of the two Americas, the New World. Okay? From this New World, which crops have been introduced to the Old World? That is what we are going to see. Now, even if we don't know the answer straight away, based on the options, we can try to reach it. Tobacco, cocoa and rubber, tobacco, cotton and rubber, cotton, coffee and sugarcane, rubber, coffee and wheat. These are the options that have been given. Now see, the New World is discovered when? 1453, basically, fall of Constantinople takes place, and then the Europeans try to find out alternate route to Asia after 1453. So any crop that was known before 1453 will obviously not satisfy this criteria. Okay? Take the example of these two over here. Cotton. Cotton was known. before. I mean, India was famous for cotton cloth. So consequently, B and C cannot be the answer option. We're left with two choices. And in these two choices, now you have a 50% probability. You are sitting pretty. Even if you take a blind guess out of these two, that is not what I'm recommending. But even if you do that, mathematically, 50% chance that you will get it right. We try to see which one is more likely. Now here, tobacco, cocoa, and rubber, coffee, and wheat. See over there, wheat, something that was known. We all agree to this. Coffee, by the way, developed in northeastern part of Africa, particularly in the area of Ethiopia. And then from there, it travels to West Asia, to Turkey, and then later it will travel to other parts of the world. So coffee is not from the New World. So this option is also incorrect. So the answer option is A, tobacco, cocoa, and rubber. Tobacco was brought to India by the Portuguese. Okay, Portuguese brought tobacco cultivation to India. And you'll be surprised perhaps, Jahangir, Basha Salamat Jahangir, was very fond of tobacco. So early, Portuguese have come to India in 1498. And Jahangir's period is, he starts his rule in 1605, but then he was a fairly mature old man by that time. So he must have got addicted during his youth. So within a few decades, tobacco has become so popular that the emperor or prince earlier, he was also accustomed to consuming tobacco. Interesting, no? Okay, let's take the next question. Consider the following statements about Charter Act of 1813. Earlier question was there on Charter Act of 1833. Now question on 1813 Act. It ended the trade monopoly of East India Company in India, except for trade in tea and China. It asserted sovereignty of British Crown on Indian territories held by the company. The revenues of India were now controlled by the British Parliament. Revenues were controlled by the British Parliament. Three statements have been given to us. Now, out of these three, one you should be 100% sure about. Ended the trade monopoly except tea and China. By the time you reach this period, in Britain, two things have happened. Number one, industrial revolution has peaked, and therefore industrialists want access to market of India. This is one. Second thing is rise of Napoleon, who is challenging the Britishers. Napoleon had implemented the continental system, which prevented the Britishers from trading with rest of Europe. And therefore, for these two reasons, there was tremendous pressure to end the monopoly of East India Company, which the Charter Act of 1813 will do. So one we are sure about. If we are sure about one, then straight away, one option is eliminated. B is eliminated because it does not have one. It asserted sovereignty of British Crown over Indian territories. And three, the revenues of India were now controlled by British Parliament. Now, East India Company is a financial corporation, right? It is here to make money. If the financial aspect, the revenue aspect will also be taken over by the British Parliament, then what will the company do, right? So statement number three cannot be right. So in the answer options, wherever you have statement number three, those can be eliminated, right? That will happen. Territories as well as revenue will be taken over when? After Revolt of 1857. Government of India Act 1858 will do that, not Charter Act of 1813. So answer option D and answer option C are eliminated, and thus we get the correct answer as A, 1 and 2 only. So based on your knowledge, guys, even if you are not sure about all the statements, if you're able to apply what you know, then very often you will be able to reach the answer. Take this question. Staple commodities of export by English East India Company from Bengal in the middle of 18th century was, again, commodities of export. Earlier also, a similar sort of question we have seen in terms of introduced commodities in India, crops in India. Raw cotton, oil seeds and opium, sugar, salt, zinc and lead, copper, silver, gold, spices and tea, cotton, silk, saltpeter and opium. Now this is a question straight from your old NCRT, Bipin Chandra, old NCRT. Okay? Saltpeter was a very famous item of export. In my lectures also, I have discussed about this. Saltpeter was required to make gunpowder, and gunpowder was used to fire big cannon guns. So it was a very popular and important export. Silk was important, so was cotton. Okay? Opium grown in Bengal, Bihar, and other parts of central India, that was also purchased and sold. Opium was also an important export. So answer is answer option D. Okay? Saltpeter over here was really the clue. If you have read NCERT, then easily you will be able to answer this question. After Santhal uprising subsided, what was or were the measures taken by the colonial government? The territories called Santhal Parganas were created. It became illegal for a Santhal to transfer land to a non-Santhal. Okay. Yes, Santhal Pargana was created. We have seen this in our class on tribal revolts. UPSC has asked questions on tribal revolts. So we need to prepare that area very thoroughly. Northeastern part of modern Jharkhand. That is the area where this separate Santhal Pargana was created. Why the British created this? Santhals gave a very valiant fight to the British Raj. 60,000 Santhals fought, and as many as 15,000 laid down their lives. It was a very brutal fight against the Britishers. Britishers realized that there is a lot of grievance and we need to address it. So they create a separate Santhal Pargana so that appropriate laws, rules can be created for that region separately. Then a separate law was passed which made transfer of land from Santhal to non-Santhal illegal. Why was that the case? Because a lot of Dikus, outsiders, especially moneylenders, then your Thekedars, all of these people were exploiting the tribals and taking away their land. So to avoid that, that sort of a measure was introduced. So it is a paternalistic measure, but then it is being done so that they are not cheated. They are not taken for a ride by the outsiders. All right. So answer is 1 and 2, both are correct. After this, with reference to educational institutions during colonial rule in India, consider the following pairs. Sanskrit College at Banaras, William Jones. Calcutta Madrasa, Warren Hastings. Fort William College, Arthur Wellesley. Okay. Now this is a tricky question, guys. Right? What is the trickiness over here? Fort William College, we just saw it was done by Lord Wellesley. But here UPSC has given Arthur Wellesley. Lord Wellesley's name was Richard Wellesley, and Arthur was his brother. Arthur was there in India. He was fighting the wars first against the Mysoreans, Tipu Sultan, and then later he will fight the Marathas in the Second Anglo-Mysore War. Arthur Wellesley. This Arthur Wellesley will go on to become the Duke of Wellington. He will defeat Napoleon in Battle of Waterloo in 1815 in Belgium, and later will also become the Prime Minister of Britain. He has been voted as the greatest British personality. So, very illustrious person, but not the guy who established the Fort William College. Okay? Now, generally UPSC does not create this sort of a confusion. It is not expected that UPSC will create confusion amongst two brothers. Generally, that is how it is, but here it had done that. Okay, most of the students did not know the first name of Lord Wellesley and they got trapped because of this. So 3 is something that we'll have to eliminate. Then Calcutta Madrasa, Warren Hastings, and in any case both the options have 2, which means this is correct. Now what is left is Sanskrit College at Banaras by William Jones. Now in 1791 that Sanskrit College was created, and it was created by one Jonathan Duncan. 1791. After Warren Hastings goes away, we have in India Lord Cornwallis as the Governor General. That is when Sanskrit College was created. It is still there. Now it is a university, a Sanskrit university, a famous Sanskrit university. So Calcutta Madrasa during Warren Hastings period, 1781 and I think 1791, you have the Sanskrit College. All right. So 2 only is correct. Which one of the following statements does not apply to the system of subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley? So Wellesleys have been asked 3 times thus far. To maintain a large standing army at others' expense, large standing army. Indian prince will maintain British army. He will pay for the troops. To keep India safe from Napoleonic danger, Lord Wellesley, when he comes, immediately the first thing that he realizes is that Napoleon, is in Egypt and he is planning to come towards India. Tipu Sultan and Napoleon are having correspondence. So Napoleonic danger was a big challenge that he faces, and subsidiary alliance helps him to counter that. To secure a fixed income for the company, to establish British paramountcy over the Indian states. Wellesley was an imperialist. He used to call himself the Royal Bengal Tiger. He wanted to bring the whole of India under British paramountcy. And subsidiary alliance was a tool that he used for it. So D is also right. Answer is answer option C. Yes, it did generate, income for East India Company, but then that was being used for what? For maintaining the troops as such. It was not as if EIC was profiting from it. So of all of these statements, the one that is not related to concept of subsidiary alliance is the third one. I hope you got this, guys. Next, which of the following led to introduction of English education in India? Charter Act of 1813, General Committee of Public Instruction 1823, Orientalist and Anglicist controversy. Slightly tricky, but then there's a logic. Charter Act of 1813, it for the first time spoke about 1 lakh per annum being spent for education in India. General Committee of Public Instruction was created to debate and check what should be the medium of public instruction in the country. So naturally, just this general committee was very important. And in this general committee, there was this heated debate or discussion whether there should be Orientalist or Anglicist education, right? So 2 and 3, in any case, if you have read these areas very well, you'll know that 2 and 3 are relevant. Okay? But then if you see, none of these first 3 options have 2 and 3. The only place where you have 2 and 3 is here, D, 1, 2 and 3. So 1 is, coming in any case. In Charter Act of 1813, there is a provision of 1 lakh per annum for education. So in that sense, it has laid the foundation, which is later developed by these 2. So UPSC has taken care that even if you are not very sure about this aspect, if you have prepared thoroughly, you will know that these 2 are relevant and you can reach the right answer based on that. All right, fine. Next, economically, one of the results of British rule in India in the 19th century was economic impact of British rule. Increase in export of Indian handicrafts. Increase in export. Growth in number of Indian owned factories. Commercialization of Indian agriculture. And lastly, rapid increase in urban population. Economically, one of the result of British rule. Will we have this increase in export of Indian handicrafts? Growth in number of Indian owned factories? No. The answer is C. Commercialization of Indian agriculture. Traditionally, Indian agriculture was all about subsistence farming. The village communities cultivated basically for their survival. But then when the British come in, they bring the concept or idea of producing for the sake of market. Plantation crops are encouraged. The products of Indian villages, agricultural products, they were connected directly to international market. That is commercialization of Indian agriculture. In that sense, this is the impact of British rule in the 19th century. Let's take the next question. Regarding Wood's dispatch, which of the following statements are correct? Grants and aid system was introduced. Establishment of universities was recommended. English as a medium of instruction at all levels of education was recommended. Wood's dispatch, 1854. Sir Charles Wood, who will become later the second Secretary of State. After revolt of 1857, the post of Secretary of State was created. We have discussed that in our last lecture. Charles Wood will become the second Secretary of State. But before that, he has given this Wood's dispatch on education. So statement number 1 and statement number 2 are right, but statement number 3 is not right. English as a medium of instruction at all levels. This is the problematic thing. Okay, at school level, there were to be Anglo-vernacular schools. Anglo-vernacular. Higher education will be in English. But at school level, it was to be Anglo-vernacular, means combination of English and the vernacular local language. I hope you got this question, guys. Next. Who among the following was or were associated with introduction of Rayotwari settlement in India during British rule? We have discussed the different settlements of the Britishers at great length. So I will not be answering this question. You will be telling me in the chat box what will be the answer for this question. And let me tell you, there is a very apparent clue hidden in the question itself. Cornwallis, Alexander Reed, Thomas Munro. If you are able to unlock that clue, then you will easily reach the answer. In any case, if you have attended the lectures, then even without the clue, you can answer this question. So let me know in the chat box, guys. I will be waiting. I'll be reading your answers. Let me know the answer of this question. Next, what was or were the objects of Queen Victoria's proclamation of 1858? Something that we have discussed in the very previous lecture. And here also, the question is obvious, simple, and direct. If you have attended the lecture, very easily you can answer this question. If you have not attended, I'll recommend that you attend the question and tell me the answer to this question in the chat box. Yes, I will be waiting for your answer for this question as well. What you can do is when you answer these questions, just write, since the numbers are not there, what you can do is you can just write the hint of that question and write the answer. For example, Queen's Proclamation dash whatever answer you want to say. Rayotwari system dash the answer ABCD, whatever you want to say. I hope you got this right. Next question. The tendency of increased litigation was visible after introduction of land settlement system of Cornwallis in 1793. The reason for this is normally traced to which of the following provisions? What led to increased tendency of litigation? What is the reason for that? Making Zamindar's position stronger vis-a-vis Rayot, making East India Company an overlord of Zamindar, and making judicial system more efficient. What is the reason for increased litigation? Actually, none of these. Litigation increased, tendency for litigation increased for other factors that were brought about by the Britishers in their judicial system. The judicial system was complicated. It was difficult to understand. It required an intermediary called as lawyers. Now, the lawyers had a propensity of, having more cases and having the cases drag on. All of this, the limitations of the judicial system led to increased tendency of legislation and not any of these factors. So the answer to this is none of the above. Okay. Next question. With reference to period of colonial rule in India, home charges formed an important part of drain of wealth from India. Drain of wealth, that is the money that was being drained away from India. Which of the following funds constituted home charges? Funds used to support the India office in London. This was the office of the Secretary of State. India office. Funds used to pay salaries and pensions of British personnel in Britain. Funds used for waging wars outside India by the British. Waging wars outside India by the British. Now 1 and 2 are correct, but not 3. We're talking about home charges, that is the expenditure incurred in Britain. The wars were not fought in Britain. Wars, whenever they were fought in other places. Britain was lucky that apart from World War II, directly its territory was not attacked, as in its homeland was not attacked during its colonial period. It was fighting wars, but in distant territories. All right, so this concludes, guys, our discussion on some of the important previous year's questions that have been asked on the topics that we have discussed. Let me know if you enjoyed this session of previous year's questions and would like to see more such sessions on PYQs, especially if you would like to see some sessions on mains questions that were asked. Do like this video, leave some love in the comment box and share this with your friends. I will see you in my next lecture where we will be starting the next, you can say, leg of our preparation journey. We'll be seeing the period post revolt of 1857. Thank you very much.